Hello again. So, why do I put these on YouTube? Why am I showing everybody my garden and what I'm doing? Because I'm not necessarily any sort of gardening expert, home hobbyist as far as that goes in terms of your knowledge level of what to do and not to do. But why do I do it? Well, I guess it's like, why did I even take the time up to do a garden and stuff like that? So I guess a little background about me. Why am I doing these videos? Why am I even doing a garden? Because it takes a lot of time, and people always say, look, I can go to Kroger for 30 cents and buy a tomato. That's right, and that's why I kind of named my video channel how I spent over $1,000 to grow tomatoes. That's a conservative approach there. That amount is well over $1,000 once you start to get into all the equipment and whatnot. But why do I do it? Well, my background is one of a long line of Italian-American home gardeners. When my great-grandparents and grandparents came over from the old country, as they say, Sicily being southern Italian, basically they would set up a garden of their own. It was in their blood, I guess, to be gardeners and farmers and olive growers and tending to animals. So they brought what they could when they were living in Detroit, New York. We're originally from outside Detroit. But all those big cities, you didn't have necessarily a farm. And, so they did what they could, backyard gardening. They would take a certain portion of their backyard to, do the garden. And they had great gardens. I saw my grandparents, they would grow the largest tomatoes, the largest eggplants, the largest everything with a rake and whatever dirt they had. They never bought dirt. They never bought raised beds. They never bought fertilizer. They never did any of these modern conveniences and things that we're supposed to do now because we have so much knowledge. They grew in crap, let's say, and they had the best garden, the largest bounty of zucchini and everything. So here we come to me, because I'm basically third generation Italian American, and as we start to get further and further away from our great grandparents and grandparents, I think we as Americans start to not have gardens anymore. We're much too busy these days. We got work for one, school maybe, second job, kids to the soccer match and baseball and homework, and coming out here to tend to a garden takes a lot of time. So I think as Americans, we kind of are moving away from it, although there is the, back to earth movement and some of these other things that are coming up, but I think it's still kind of a niche thing. It's not, everybody. It's not like World War II where promote a victory garden. Everybody had a garden to help, offset the shortages and stuff for the wars and whatnot. So why am I doing this then? Well, I guess it's in my blood, and it's a tradition. So when I'm out here gardening, one, it is basically, well, as a continuation of the family tradition, and kind of what I'm doing here is, as I pick my tomatoes and as I have successful harvest, I guess I kind of stop and think for a second or two of, gee, are they, up there looking down on me saying, good job, Michael, we grew tomatoes and you're continuing that tradition. So it's kind of a remembrance of the people who have come before you and your family, and kind of an homage to them. And it makes me think about grandparents' gardens and how they did them. So I guess there's that. The other, it's a hobby. It gets you off the couch, right? Gets you out here, uses some muscles and stuff like that. So it's a little bit of exercise, it's a little bit of sun, a little bit of physical activity. So I guess there's that. But it's kind of fun too when you can grow something and eat what you grow. There's something, good about that. I mean, tomatoes grown in your yard are always better than the store. They can't seem to replicate that because they pick everything green. So it's kind of fun. And, I would always watch the PBS. If you're kind of my age, you grew up on PBS, Julia Child, all the cooking shows, and they only had one gardening show at the time on PBS, and that was the Victory Garden with Roger Swain and some of the other guys. And it was always funny because they'd always come out there you know, get basically their hands or a little hand spade, and they would basically dig a little dirt, throw in a plant, and it would grow. It was the most beautiful dirt you could ever see. I mean, you could blow on it and it would just, you know, fly away. Now, of course, when I try to replicate that as I was growing up, of course, we're dealing with clay and hard dirt and no rain, and, you know, it's never that sanitized TV version. Now, of course, fast forward to nowadays, right, and what do we got? We have YouTube. And so in the days of Roger Swain and one channel, YouTube is filled with folks doing videos about gardening, how-tos, best practices. It's a wonderful thing. It really is wonderful. I could watch those channels as well as you probably watch your YouTube channels all day. And it's always funny because just like on PBS, those guys had great production values. There's people out there that I'm shocked and surprised at how good they are. They got theme songs and, you know, high-def camera and cameramen and everything like that. I mean, they do such a great job. And the one thing I still joke about is I don't see anybody getting their hands dirty as much as I do. I mean, if you look at my pants and shorts and, you know, nails and stuff like that, it seems like a lot of the professional YouTubers out there, you never see them getting on their hands and knees and wallowing in the mud like I seem to do. After I've been out here 20 minutes, I have to go into a shower and get all this mud and dirt off me and off my clothes, and the family's like, where in the hell have you been? And it's like, I never see any of those YouTubers that dirty like me, who's in there with their hands mixing the dirt. If you would have saw me earlier with my coffee grounds, I was busting up the pellets with my hands because, you know, no tool kind of gets it the way you want, and kind of mixing the dirt, you kind of get in there and mix it with your arms, like almost like you're mixing dough. In some ways, gardening and bread making are the same because I get in there and mix it with my hands. Now, of course, that may not be the best way, but sometimes it's just the easiest way to get in there because the rakes and the hose and everything like that can't get in there and mix it up like you want. So I end up just wallowing like a pig in the mud. So maybe you do that too. I don't know, or you found a better way to stay cleaner. But with this hobby, if you're going to be out here in the garden, you're getting dirty. That's all I can say. If you're going to really say you're gardening, I guess. But the good thing, too, about these times we live in is now there's things hopefully to make it easier. There's lots of techniques. One of the things that we kind of have here around the borders and everything is all the mulch and all the wood chips. Basically, the back to Eden gardening method that says, you know, we've been stripping the topsoil off the dirt and all the goodness. You put the wood chips down, and that's the only thing you ever need. That's how the forest grows. Nobody waters a forest. Nobody rototills the ground in the forest. And so I love those videos. I love that technique. So that's kind of what we're doing here a little bit, is putting the wood chips around and seeing if that doesn't break down, turn into the soil, all the good things that a back to garden Eden methodology shows you. And you can watch a lot of videos on that. But also too, you know, because we live in Texas here and it's all red clay, you need containers to some degree. If you're really going to grow, I need some good dirt. So I'm raising up the ground, putting in some good dirt, and we'll have the container garden, which is another effective methodology. And for a very, very long time here, we've done containers. As you see here, I got garlic in these low, flat containers. And over here, there's some flowers that I had. But we had container gardens, and they're the cloth containers because what they do is the air prune. Everything grows really well in those containers. And for the last couple of years, as I've started out slowly, I've done a lot of that. Now, for everything you do, there's pros and cons. The pros of the containers is great dirt, air pruning, things grow, and you get an abundance. The downside is you got to water all that. And in the Texas hot sun, those containers will dry out. So yes, you can grow in a 1-gallon cloth container. It'll grow fine. But if you live in Texas, that's going to dry out in an hour. And you got to constantly water that, and you got to constantly keep it watered. Now you can put it in the reservoirs and stuff like that, but then you got, you know, the mosquitoes, and you got to put that stuff down to kill them. So last year we had about 150 or more containers. If you see any of my other videos, it looks like a hanging Gardens of Babylon with all the containers. And it was great. But it's a lot of work, and you got to keep it watered. And in Texas, the rule that I found is if you're going to do that, the bigger the better, because the bigger containers, 10, but really 15 and 20, holds the moisture, doesn't dry out as fast, and when you water it, you can maybe water it once a day rather than more times a day. So there's lots of pros and cons and things that you have to do when you're finding a methodology. But the good thing is that there's no necessarily right or wrong. There's a lot of what works in your area, your climate, and just, I don't know, sometimes the luck of the garden. But you learn, and that's the thing that keeps you coming back to gardening, is that you learn. And even though something went bad one year, the next year you're like, damn it, now I know that I'll do it differently and set it up differently. And you'll be successful and have those big giant tomatoes and vegetables that everybody wants. So I guess in summary, that's why I'm kind of doing this garden. Family tradition, hobby, and also when you are working like I do, I travel for work, I'm a consultant, so I'm always on the road. So when I come home, the last thing you want to do is talk to people, type on a computer. I guess it's therapy, coming out here and pulling weeds and just spending time in the quiet. So rather than pay a shrink, have a garden, and maybe you have your own nature therapy or whatever like that. So I'll keep making these videos, and you may find them interesting. I'll try to talk more about the successes and failures, because everybody always sees the successes, and sometimes we hide our failures, and that ain't right either. You gotta, I guess, keep it real in that sense and share with everybody what we do good, what we do bad. So I guess if you like some of these videos, then subscribe, please. Thank you very much. For those who have been watching my videos already, thank you very much as well. I really appreciate that. And I'll be watching you and your videos, and you'll be watching ours. And so together maybe we can share the successes and failures and methodologies and what works and what doesn't. So I say goodbye to you right now, and we'll see you again with additional videos.